Welcome to Mountain Stream TV. Today is November 18th, 2025. I'm Ron Arps. Today we're here to interview Shannon Royce from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service about how to make your grocery dollar go further. It's a time when prices are going up and people have been laid off. Food stamps, SNAP benefits have been kind of in limbo for a little while, and it seemed like this would be a good time to talk about that. Also, we're approaching Thanksgiving and Christmas, so there'll be a lot of food preparation going on then. This is all part of our project called the Community Preservation Forum, and we've talked with probably 15 or 20 people from other organizations over the last few months to get information about health and nutrition, housing, education, commerce, all of which affect people every day in their lives here in Jackson County. So, Shannon, I'll kind of turn the floor over to you, and you're I can never remember, the Family and Consumer Sciences agent for the Extension Service.
That's correct. Well, thank you. Thanks, Ron, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to this very important and very timely issue. So like you mentioned, I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences. It used to kind of be like home economics. This is sort of what it was referred to. But, we present the research-based information from North Carolina State University and North Carolina A&T University, as well as, many of the other extension services, even across the country. So I do a lot of healthy lifestyle information, a lot of work, so fitness-related work, offer a lot of programs at the senior center, I've dabbled in some food preservation, still learning about that. But a lot of the work that we're sort of gearing towards, especially towards this holiday season and giving sort of the current climate, is working with the public and food pantries and things like that to try to get the word out on how you can make those grocery dollars go further. So interestingly enough, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was on that very topic, and it was with the University of Kentucky Extension Services. So they had quite an interesting, so I kind of took down a few notes about some of the things that they recommended, which were pretty interesting. So I've got a lot of really good information I'd love to share this morning with how to make those groceries go a lot further. And one of the key things to do is planning. Planning is going to be the key to success, whether it's just your everyday grocery shopping or you're getting ready for the holidays. So planning, the first thing in that planning process is checking your own inventory in your own pantry and seeing what you already have. So that's sort of the first thing. And then what meals can you create around those existing pantry items? So you can get pretty creative with that, but that's kind of one way to not overshop or to duplicate. Another thing to do is to meal plan. So that's part of that planning process, not only shopping and doing an inventory of what you already have, but trying to then create those meals around what you already have. And then maybe when you go grocery shopping, you're just supplementing what you already have. So maybe you have things in the freezer or things in your pantry, and you can get creative. And I'll tell you too, a really great tool, technology-wise, AI-wise, is ChatGPT.
Really?
It honestly has been one of my go-tos for menu and meal planning. I'll survey what I have in the fridge, the freezer, the pantry, and type in those particular ingredients and, say, what can I make with this? And maybe when I go to the grocery store, I only have to buy one or two things instead of a whole grocery list. It's quite, I have used it probably more for menu and meal planning than I have anything else. So it's great in a pinch if you just throw it in there and say, I have these random ingredients at home. What easy meal can I make?
Uh-huh. Wasn't there a television show like that? Some chefs where they'd, give them 3 ingredients and they had to come up with something. So
Absolutely.
you can be a gourmet chef in your own home with what you have in the pantry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the tips that they brought up in the podcast I listened to this morning was using spaghetti noodles and not using them in the way that most people would think to use with just a pasta sauce and we're going to make spaghetti, but substituting those spaghetti noodles for rice, for instance, for a stir-fry dish. So most of us have spaghetti noodles in our pantry, right? And maybe we only use them one time, and then they sit there for quite a while afterwards. And so instead of, I was going to make a stir-fry and I don't have rice, but I do have a box of spaghetti sitting in my pantry, kind of thinking outside the box, so to speak, and using those noodles to make an affordable meal with that. So, a stir fry, using the frozen vegetables, throwing in those spaghetti noodles, and maybe if you've got an egg, scramble that up for some protein, or maybe you've got some chicken that you already have cooked, and throw that together with even just some soy sauce or some basic seasonings, and then you've got a meal that you can feed your family for easy and affordable. And just a lot of it, the planning is key, but also just being creative and being willing to try new things. So thinking outside the box and not necessarily sort of your standard meal that you would imagine. It's like having breakfast for dinner, right? Getting just creative with what you have. It may not have to look, breakfast items don't always have to be at breakfast. Dinner items don't always have to be at dinner. So kind of just getting creative and playing with flavors and experimenting with different things that you have in the pantry.
That's sort of in line with what I was thinking about, that being able to save some money by buying a larger quantity of something like canned tomatoes. You can get like 2 times as much for 1.5 times the price, I guess, of buying a big can rather than a small can. But then you could have some left over, which might go to waste, but you could just call up ChatGPT and say, I've got half a can of tomatoes that I need to do something with.
Absolutely. And it is a great tool just to kind of get your thinking a little bit, because sometimes we get stuck in a rut, and maybe we're looking for a new idea, or we have that little bit of extra, and maybe we want to do something different with it. So it's a great tool. And so when you were talking about that, about getting the larger size, the one thing that people should realize, the most important thing to look at is the unit price, because buying bigger isn't necessarily always cheaper. So comparing that unit price when you grocery shop is kind of going to be your biggest helper and best friend when you're grocery shopping. So that's something to throw out there for folks, that just because there's a lot of something doesn't necessarily mean that's the best deal.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to name grocery stores, but I've noticed at Save More, sometimes the larger quantity costs more per unit than the small, which always surprises me. I always expect it to be less, but you're right. You really need to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. So that is another way. Something else is buying beans and things dried, because you can buy a very inexpensive bag of beans. Maybe it's a 16-ounce bag of beans, but when that's cooked, that can give you 8 cups of beans. So it's a little bit more work up front, but the bang you get for your buck in the long run. And there's lots of great resources, even at the extension office, to help with that, to how to sift through and to how to cook your beans and do that little bit of work up front. But you can then use those beans, for vegetarian options, to kind of reduce your consumption of meat, or also to bolster. So if you're, say, doing tacos and you've cooked up maybe some black beans or some different type of beans, mixing those in with your ground meat or whatever it happens to be, and you can bulk up, so adding that nutritional profile, adding the fiber, but also extending your portions out. So maybe, instead of a ground meat by itself and you're only feeding 2 or 3 people, adding in those beans and bulking that up, maybe you're able to feed your family of 6. And so extending that and adding that bulk and that nutrition and that fiber. So those beans really can come in handy as a meat substitute or as an addition to help make that meat last a little bit longer. So that's a really great way. And beans are so versatile. So you can have them with rice and make a complete meal. So that's a great option. Or like you said, add in and get that additional nutritional boost and that fiber in there. So dried beans are kind of a worst kept secret, really. I think people get a little intimidated and a little afraid of them, but really with a little bit of work up front, you really get the payoff in the end is definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I volunteer at the community table, and what we really do is crate and date, they call it. When all the canned goods come in, we write the date on it. But I notice a lot of beans, and I think this is stuff that I would buy for myself because, it really is the most versatile thing that you can find, I think.
Absolutely.
And, my wife and I actually have rice and beans and sweet potatoes for breakfast.
And that's where that creativity is, and thinking outside the box and not necessarily thinking, I can only eat that at dinner. But, you just, as your own personal example, provided that, and that's what you have for breakfast. So food doesn't have to look like, what we imagined it has to look like. If we use a little bit of imagination, creativity, we can really make the most of our meals. And using even things that take little work. So split peas, for example, you can buy those dried, and they don't need to be soaked ahead of time. So you can cook up your split peas and add those to all kinds of things, make a grain and bean bowl out of it. You can add it to soups and stews to bulk that up. You could add that again, versatile, just like the beans. So thinking about those options and not shying away from those. Another way too to make the grocery dollar go a little bit more is, food pantries are there, to offer that assistance and to help supplement someone's groceries. So you may have limited dollars to spend at the grocery store, but making a trip to the food pantry, they're there for a resource to help the community. And a lot of times, they get in some really great options. And one of the things that I'm excited about and get to work with, actually starting this week with the food pantry in Bryson City, is providing them with recipes and different options that they can put on the shelves so they can reorganize their food pantry, so that when someone comes in, it makes it easier for them to make the choices to help create those meals. So they may find a recipe for beans and rice, and then they pick up their beans, they pick up their rice, and then they have an actual tool that they can use when they get home, and they don't have to wonder, now what am I going to do with this stuff? How am I going to make it? We're trying to provide those resources and those tools to make it easier for folks to be able to make the most that they can out of the food pantry. So going grocery shopping, supplementing when you need to, and then giving you the tools that you need to make those choices a lot easier. And not even just that, but also we have a way of sort of ranking in the food pantry to help you pick more nutritious choices. So there may be green choices, yellow choices, and red choices, and sort of steering people towards those more nutritious options just as an education tool. So that not only helps you extend your grocery budget, but it also helps you with those healthier choices while you are at the food pantry. So they're a really great community resource. And I'm really, really thrilled to be able to kind of take some of the research and the tools that we have at our disposal and share those with the pantry, which then helps out the rest of the community.
Yeah, that would kind of help you break out of a rut, or a pattern, would be a better word. I haven't really ever thought about using this, but when I see these two things together on the shelf, then Yeah, absolutely. And then being able to do some food demonstrations as well. So in places like at the farmer's market, for instance, or at the food pantry, and using foods that maybe, you're going to come across, but you're not quite sure what to do with, and doing a quick food demonstration and letting you taste it, and then giving you the recipe and saying, when you go into the pantry, you're going to find these items, and you can take this now home and make that for dinner for your family. Right.
So sharing that education piece is,
Yeah, the Uncomplicated Kitchen does food preparation twice a month, I think, at the community table. So
yeah, they're
that's
really
a
great
good
resources.
resource.
Absolutely, absolutely. And having this particular platform is also a great way of letting folks know that those resources are out there and what they do and what they offer. Because there's a lot of really great things, a lot of really great ways to help make folks make better choices, make more economical choices, you know, and just like you said, get creative and kind of thinking outside the box. Some of the other things that were that were mentioned this morning is, you know, making sure obviously you shop your sales and your flyers, use your coupons, use all of those things. There's even apps on your phone that can help you comparison shop around grocery stores if you really want to tap into the technology piece. You know, otherwise there's just, you know, kind of your flyers and things. But keeping an eye on when things are on sale and maybe you buy one or two extra of those things. So not just enough for your groceries, but maybe you buy, you know, a couple of extra cans of corn or a couple extra cans of beans, and then you just have them because they're shelf stable, so they're going to last. And then if you're in that kind of a rut and you're like, oh, wait, but I have that can of corn, I could add to my whatever it happens to be to add a little bit more vegetable or color or diversity to that. So that's one of the ways you can shop smart and make the most of those dollars, as well as when those things are maybe 2 for $1 or whatever they happen to be. Another great option too, and is very inexpensive, but using seasonings to help you add that flavor, and seasonings can make a dish go a long way. So it may seem kind of maybe dull and bland, but you add a little bit of seasonings, and seasonings are relatively inexpensive. At the dollar store even, you know, places like that to buy them, and they really give you a little bit more boost and help extend the life of those dishes and make them a little bit more interesting. Instead of using so much fats and processed things, you can really add the flavor profile. You can up that, the taste profile, and just, you know, encourage, you know, maybe you're eating leftovers and, you know, maybe you're looking forward to that tasty, you know, curry you made because you added a few extra seasonings to it. So those are a great way.
I've heard that adding something acidic, lemon juice or something, to a dish brings out the flavor more.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That is absolutely true. It helps brighten it. So sometimes you might think, oh, there's a little something missing, and maybe you add a little bit of lime juice or add a little bit of lemon juice, and it does kind of brighten that and bring the flavors out. So there's all kinds of really great, inexpensive ways to make your cooking. So just because you're cooking on a budget or you have limited funds doesn't mean that you have to have boring, dull, unflavorful, unappealing meals. There's lots of really great ways to just take it up a notch, and again, like you said, sort of feel like you're your own creative chef in your own home.
And would that possibly help people to use less salt?
Absolutely. There's lots of things, the flavors, and so if you get creative with your spices, even going so far as making your own spice blend, then you can control how much of what the ingredients is, it how powerful you want it. You know, do you like it really spicy? Do you like it mild? But it helps increase that flavor profile without adding in sort of that extra sodium and salt. Absolutely. Another thing that is super helpful is if you have access to a crock pot, that is also a really great way to help your grocery dollars. You know, so you mentioned about the can of tomatoes, maybe you have some frozen vegetables, and then maybe you have some chicken. Add in a little bit of seasonings, dump that in there, you know, let it cook. You come home at the end of the day, you've got a meal already ready for you. You don't have to think about it, and that feeds your family and possibly even gives you some leftovers for another day. So crock pot, if you have one, it is like your hidden, like, secret weapon, especially if you're busy and you don't have time in the evening, you know, and saves you from having to go through the drive-through and pick up something that's quick for the family, knowing that you threw something in the morning before you went to work and come home and feel like you had a personal chef working really hard all day, and all you had to do was take the lid off, you know, and serve this hot, delicious meal that was really easy and required, you know, less than 5 ingredients to pull together. So
Mhm.
the crock pot or slow cooker is a really great, I think, underutilized tool.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That is always a, and then the other thing is we talked about the planning at the very beginning, but meal prepping. So maybe you make something in your crock pot, or you make a large quantity of something, taking that, and maybe you have that for dinner one night, but then you take the other half and you put it in freezer containers, labeling and dating and putting in the freezer, and then you can pull that out afterwards. So that extends the life of the meal that you made without it going bad or people getting tired of it just sitting in the fridge. It's a great way, and it's a really nice surprise sometimes when you're like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? Oh, wait, I remember I froze that container of chili. That's a bonus. I can pull that out and de-thaw it, and it's a kind of a lifesaver. So that, again, is also another great way to extend that grocery budget, is cooking something and then freezing part of it to be able to use later. So that way it's fresh, it's preserved properly, and then you can pull it out as you need it. So that's another great option for doing that.
Husbands like that too.
Yes.
When I have a couple of friends who do that all the time. She, makes something for dinner, makes extra quantities, and then she's actually away traveling quite a bit, so he has the frozen things to get out of the freezer when she's gone.
Absolutely. It's really nice to be able to do that, especially, and then you're not, going for takeout or going through the drive-through, or, just kind of getting a freezer meal that, is not really nutritionally great, and knowing that your wife made home cooking and all you have to do is heat it up. That really is, that's sort of a wonderful gift that you can give your partner, your spouse.
Not that there aren't a lot of men who enjoy cooking and do a really great job at
Absolutely.
it too.
Absolutely. I happen to be privileged to be married to one of those. Very, very fortunate. The other, another tip I just kind of wanted to talk about is really just buying those staples. So whether you get those from the pantry or whether you get them at the grocery store, but making sure you have your dried beans, your dried rice, your canned goods, frozen foods, things that are always going to be available to you in a pinch, and that you can always add to make a meal that's affordable and easily available. So just trying to shop those sales, buy those staple ingredients that are going to be shelf stable, that aren't going to spoil or go bad. Buy what you can, supplement when you need. And just, like I said, get creative. Use those spices. Use AI. It really is a great tool for that.
So what do you do with AI? I've never used ChatGPT. So you just say, I want a recipe that has tomatoes and corn in it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like a little search bar, and you just type in whatever it is that you happen to have, and it will spit out like 2 or 3 different recipe options. And it's, like I said, if you don't want to have to think about something or scour online or anything, it's like I said, I use it all the time. If I'm like, oh well, I don't really feel like going grocery shopping today, this is what I have. I have a can of tuna and I have 2 potatoes. I actually did this the other night. I made a potato soup, but I only had 2 potatoes. I had a little bit of dairy in the fridge. I had some random vegetables. I had a few other little things in the house. And so I literally put in there exactly the quantities that I had for potato soup. And it was like, here's an easy potato soup to make that will give you 2 or 3 servings. And I didn't have to go shopping. I used the leftover onion and the potatoes and the things that I had at home. And we made a great soup that fed us all for dinner and had lunch again the next day. So it sometimes was and I wouldn't have thought, oh, I can't make a soup because I don't have the bag of potatoes or I don't have all the larger quantities, but it was just an easy way and used up all my leftover things I had in the house, and I didn't have to go to the grocery store. So
Perfect.
yeah, so those are just some little tips. But yeah, use your slow cooker. The food pantry is there. They're there to help the community. Use them when you need to help supplement. Reaching out to your local extension office. We're here to provide assistance, to provide those resources, to put on classes, to teach, the community, how to, if you're wondering how to cook those beans, give us a call. We're happy to help and provide those resources any way that we can to kind of make somebody's life a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. It's great to have a resource like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I hear on the news that one of the things that is happening now is that people are shifting from brand name products to the store label.
Mm-hmm.
And is that I often wonder if there's really a difference, a significant difference, or I only buy the store label.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think they're, good quality and,
Mm-hmm.
and flavorful, and so I've always wondered about that. Is there any research that, I know that there are some products that, have a specific flavor that you might like.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like Cabot cheese, Cabot extra sharp cheese, and I'm willing to pay extra for that because I like it so much. But, if you're buying green beans, canned green beans.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if there's research. There probably is. I haven't delved too deep into it. But again, it comes down to that unit price, right? So in a lot of cases, if you took a brand name and the store brand and read the ingredient list on the back of them, in a lot of cases, you're going to read the exact same ingredients. Again, in some cases, it might be a slightly different flavor profile that you might prefer. But don't assume that the store brand is going to be cheaper than the name brand. Because shopping those sales and just kind of educating yourself and looking at that unit price, that's going to give you your best indication. Because in a lot of cases, the name brand can be less expensive than the store brand. It just sort of depends on what's happening in the store that day. So again, take a little extra time to look at the labels. Again, if you're willing to pay more and it's a flavor preference and you're like, that's just my one thing I'm not going to let go of, then absolutely. But just comparing and contrasting and looking at that unit price, and again, shopping those sales, because a lot of times you can have really great sales on name brand stuff and it ends up being less expensive than the store brand.
That's true.
Yeah. So
I find when I look at the sales circulars that there are not many things that I would buy, actually, because I don't buy processed foods. I go back to the basic ingredients. But for somebody who does buy, processed packaged dinners or frozen foods, that certainly is the way to go about it, is to, look for what's on sale and buy that.
Absolutely, because when it comes down to buying just sort of the basic necessities to be able to use, there is going to be very little difference in, whether you buy, what is a brand, say, is it Mahatma rice versus Laura Lynn rice? I mean, when it comes down to that, or a particular brand of dried beans or whatever store brand dried beans, there's really not going to be, any real difference with that sort of thing. And you brought up a good point in terms of the processed and the prepackaged and things. While they are more convenient and they're a lot quicker, and they're also put on the shelves and in the freezers sort of at eye level so that you're more gravitating towards that, it makes it easier for you to choose. Always if you're really in a pinch with your grocery budget, is to buy those staples and then use them in multiple recipes. So using your rice, using your beans, getting a whole head of broccoli, those sorts of things, as opposed to those pre-chopped and convenience items, because that you're going to see your grocery bill add up really quickly and you're going to come home with a lot less than you were planning on. So taking that little bit of time and putting in that effort up front if you're really trying to stretch your grocery dollar. Because again, making chicken, for instance, if you cook several breasts of chicken, you can use that chicken in then multiple meals. So you can throw it in a stir fry, throw it in a pasta, maybe you shred it and you make chicken sandwiches with it, or a chicken salad. So you can get a lot of variety and a lot extending your dollar by buying those things that you can use in multiple meals. So that is probably one of the keys: planning and meal prepping, and then buying ingredients that you can use in different ways for multiple meals. If I had to pick the top 3 ways to extend that grocery budget, that's what I would do.
Say that again?
Meal planning,
Mm-hmm.
buying the staples of things that you can use in multiple recipes,
Mm-hmm.
and planning. So planning, prepping, and buying ingredients that you're going to use in
Mhm.
multiple ways. So those would be the top 3. Instead of just buying groceries that you would just buy for one meal, make sure that you're buying something that you can use for 2 or 3 different meals.
Yep. Sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely.
Questions? I guess we probably all have our preference about grocery stores. Like some people like Ingles, some people like Food Lion, but I was really surprised one time when I decided that I really needed to do a comparison to see if I was actually shopping at the store that was giving me the best prices.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, I found out that I wasn't. We live near Save More,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought their prices were pretty good. But then I probably took 10 or 15 things that we buy a lot, and wrote down the prices at Save More, and then I went to Food Lion
Mm-hmm.
and did the same thing, and I went to Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't turn out the way I expected. And recently I've been doing, for 4 months now, I've been doing this survey of Food Lion and Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the 2 that I figured were probably the lowest price. And basically I found out that Walmart is the cheapest, which I kind of expected.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not much difference. And
Is there any difference in the quality of food that you get from one grocery store to the next?
who knows?
Exactly. That's hard. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
However, I will say, depending on where you're located and depending on how far you have to drive, factoring that into your choice as well. So it may be that, to use your 2 examples, Food Lion and Walmart, one may be less expensive, but how far is it going to be for you to drive? And how much are you going to spend on gas to get there? And is it worth the gas that you're going to spend for the savings at that particular place? So those are things to factor in there as well,
Right.
as knowing that, well, yes, going to Walmart is cheaper. I live in Bryson City. It's going to be closer for me to go to Ingalls instead of driving all the way, out to
Yeah.
Walmart because of what I'm going to spend in gas.
Right.
If I'm already closer to that location, that maybe makes more sense to take advantage of that opportunity. But those are things that people don't necessarily think about, as if I'm driving all over everywhere. And, we're in a rural area, so, it's not like there's things on every block and it's in close proximity. Sometimes it's a 20-minute, drive to get to where you need to go. So factoring that in when you're looking at your comparison shopping is also something folks need to factor in there.
It depends on how much, like if you're doing a large grocery shopping where you're literally spending a couple of $100,
Mm-hmm.
it might be worth it to travel
Absolutely.
further.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's sort of how we approach it in our household. If we're going to go and do one of those big grocery shops, then it may be worth the drive because it may be, you're able to accomplish everything in that one trip and may not have to make, closer, smaller trips, ideally. that never usually works out that way. Best laid plans, again, with that planning, you think you have it covered and you come home and realize one or two things, got left off the grocery list and have to make that trip. But I'm trying to think if there was anything else in here.
My wife and I are fortunate in that she goes to Franklin once a week to, she's a musician and she plays music with some people over there. And we discovered Aldi.
Mm-hmm.
And so she can go to Aldi. And overall, Aldi is really a great deal in my opinion. And they don't offer a lot of variety. It's all house brand food, but I've found that it's good quality and the prices have been, well, they fluctuate a lot actually. They change their prices compared to, say, Walmart, which pretty much keeps theirs even. And I found out they have kept it the same over the last 4 months. But we really, feel fortunate that we don't have to make a special trip or buy a lot of food. But we really like that.
Yeah, one of my coworkers turned me on to Aldi, and so if I happen to be in that particular area and go grocery shopping, the first time I went, I will remember I could not get over the amount of groceries that I brought home and for what I spent, and thought if I went to some other grocery store, I would have brought home half of this and probably spent more.
Yeah.
So it really is, again, factoring in if you're going to do those grocery shopping, to factor that in, because sometimes it is actually worth, going on the drive to do that. And I've never been disappointed with anything. Their produce is incredible. It's always fresh. The variety of things that they have, are really good. I have a teenager, so she likes a lot of snack food. So every time I go, she gets very excited for the snack options to have there. But even their meats, and they have a lot of natural and organic products there. So, I've not been disappointed at any time that I've made the trek down there.
Yeah.
It's also, if you have other things to do in Franklin.
Yep.
Combined.
100%.
Right.
100%. And it's,
Going to walk on the Greenway or.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. There's the beautiful Greenway to go out on a walk, and just for a different change of pace. Their downtown's lovely. There's all kinds of opportunities down there. So kind of making a day trip. If you're going to go that far, make a day or an afternoon of it, and take in it. So another tip, and we talked about this a little bit, but using those staple items. So sort of cooking in bulk with those items, and maybe, depends on how your family feels about leftovers. But batch cooking, a couple of different things, and then using those in different creative ways. So making things like stir fries or chilies or things like that, where you can get those multiple meals out of it, instead of just, tonight we're going to have X, and then tomorrow, and then, trying to do something different every night, as maybe you get, or you make that chili and you have it as chili one night, and then you have it over baked potatoes, the next day, or then maybe you have chili dogs one other night. And so you can use that same menu item and use it in a different way, and make it look a little bit different. So that's another great way to extend that grocery dollar, instead of trying to cook something different for every single night, is cook that and maybe eat it 2 or 3 different times, and have it just look a little bit differently. So that's a really great thing to do as well. So, and then making sure that if you cook enough, make sure that you've got enough for leftovers, right? So that you've got that little bit extra, so you're not trying to wonder, if I got to run to Burger King for lunch today because we're out of stuff. It's like, oh no, wait, we have leftover, XYZ, and now I have lunch today, and it's healthy and homemade, and so there's just different ways like that to help. But so planning is key, and also, like I said, tap into those community resources. They're there for a reason. So whether it's the extension office, whether if it's services like Community Table, or other food pantries, following or getting involved with Uncomplicated Kitchen, and getting ideas with them. There's lots of really great resources in all of our communities to help, to kind of take the demystify how to cook, how to shop, and what to do. So I think we're very, very grateful in this area to have a lot of those resources and
We are.
and this particular platform, that you've created, I think is wonderful because it gets the word out there and more folks get to know about those resources and those opportunities in our communities. So I think you guys are doing a great job. This is a great service.
I've been amazed at how many organizations there are
Mhm.
here. I had no idea when we started this project, there were all these groups of people who were there to help everybody, and I firmly believe that all of us are only one day away from needing those resources.
Absolutely.
Everything could change overnight, and just be grateful that they're there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's one of the things that I'm enjoying about sort of working with the different food pantries and kind of to get to know them and what they provide, and how we at Extension can help kind of make the most of those food pantries for the folks that are visiting them, and make them feel more like a grocery store and give them more autonomy and more choices, and have them be able to leave sort of with a sense of pride and tools in their toolkit, and have that information and education. So I think that's really important as well, because I feel like, just because we visit a food pantry doesn't make us any less, right? It's just we're
Right.
taking advantage of a service that's being offered in our community because we happen to need it at that time.
Mhm.
And I think there should be no shame in that.
So do you have anything else that you haven't covered?
I think I've kind of talked about a lot of the things as, planning and prepping, buying in bulk when it makes sense, buying extra items when they're on sale just to have as a backup plan, use technology when it's appropriate, dig out your crock pot if it's hidden in a cupboard covered in dust and you haven't used it. It could be your new best friend. Make extra quantities, and then, buying things that you can use for multiple meals. So buying those dried beans, buying that rice, and just getting creative with what you do really can make things go a long way.
Growing your own food.
There's that, absolutely.
Yeah,
If you happen
yeah.
to be talented enough to grow your own food, that absolutely is a great way, obviously, to extend the grocery budget. If you are self-contained and can do those things, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be fancy. You can do a lot of your growing of your own thing in a pot on your deck or in your windowsill. And then if you need help with your gardening and growing those things, you can always call the extension office. And our horticulture agent, Minda Daughtry, would be more than
That's right.
happy to answer those questions. But yeah, absolutely. If you're fortunate enough to live in an area where you can grow things, and maybe you don't grow everything, but it's enough to help supplement, right? So maybe that's how you get your fresh produce, and you can add in with that.
And there are community gardens too.
Absolutely.
A lot of people that I know say, "Oh, I can't grow stuff at my house because I don't have enough sun." But there's a community garden in Sylvan. There's one in Cullowhee,
Mhm.
and there are people who garden for a couple years and then they have to quit or move somewhere, and their plot opens up, and then there are lots of people there to help you.
Absolutely.
Give you advice about how to grow things and help you pull the weeds.
Absolutely. So again, another one of those incredible community resources that we're fortunate enough in this area to have, and using, again, platforms like this to get the word out and letting folks know about that, because not everybody in this area may know that we have community gardens over here in Jackson County.
I've read there's an increase in people raising their own chickens. This is a national phenomenon
Yeah.
that's going on as well.
Yeah, when egg prices go up, people,
Yeah, egg prices and chicken.
And chicken, mm-hmm.
egg prices are really low right now.
They are very low. They are very low. Yes. And eggs are a very inexpensive now way to also to get your healthy protein in, and you can use eggs in just about anything. Something else though too that, and I'm not sure how dairy prices are right now, but another really great thing, and I never really think about this, that I heard on the podcast this morning was dried milk, or powdered milk, I guess it's called. And because it's shelf stable and you can use it when you need it, how you need it, and reconstitute it, but using it in all kinds of different dishes, from your baking to whatever it happens, it will help. It can increase the nutritional profile of a dish. If buying milk, or you're afraid it's going to spoil, or maybe you're not going to get to it soon enough, but using the powdered milk and adding water, and having it, on hand. So that's also a really great resource, and it's also found at a lot of food pantries. It's very inexpensive, and it's a great way to add that dairy component to different things, and very inexpensive way to do it without worrying about paying $3 for a little tiny thing of milk because you ran out and you needed it for that one thing. So that's a really great option that we don't always think about, that's readily available and very inexpensive and cost effective to use. So anything that's dried like that, really can really go a long way and be used in a number of different ways. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do this summer, and I've only been with Cooperative Extension for just over a year. It's been a year and a couple of weeks. But we had a program at the farmers market called the Donation Station. And it was a really great way to help the food pantries acquire fresh produce. So we set up, and it's through Cooperative Extension, and we set up a table at the farmers market, and patrons at the farmers market can either donate money, or they can buy extra produce and donate the produce, or the farmers themselves at the end of the market, if they have extra produce that they don't want to take with them, they're also able to donate that. The other beautiful thing about it is that people in the community, if they have overflow in their own gardens, and they're looking for something to do with it, they're able to bring that extra produce as well. And then how that works is that we work with either one or a number of different food pantries in the area to coordinate pickup of that fresh produce, so that they can help then supplement and then get fresh local produce. So it helps the community, it helps the farmers, and it helps the patrons of those farmers markets. And it was sort of through doing that this summer that I was able to learn about more and more agencies here in Jackson County that work with food insecurity. So learned more about Community Table and Uncomplicated Kitchen, and then there's some different agencies over in Cullowhee that do a community meal, once a week. So really just learning and then being able to share about that information out to the community. So it's been a great sort of stepping off point to venture into the different organizations and agencies that we have here in Jackson County. So it's a
you
pretty.
mentioned dehydrating food. At Harold's supermarket, when the bananas get overripe, they sell them very cheaply. Let them get like 8 or 10 pounds for, I think it's $1.99 or something like that. And you can dry the bananas, or you can make banana bread out of it. I don't know if people can hear me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the other way too, is that that you brought up a good point actually about food waste, is being able to, if you start to notice that things are kind of maybe going to be less than at their peak, so to say. So maybe it's your spinach, right? Maybe you're using it fresh in your salad or whatever it happened to be, and then it's starting to go, maybe I don't want to eat that fresh, but I could use it in a dish. And so now maybe I'm going to saute it. So you can kind of extend the life a little bit more. Or, you could cook that up and freeze it, and use it for a later dish, right? So just because things are maybe a little bit past their prime doesn't mean they need to go into the trash. They're still good. The quality may not be at its peak, but from a health standpoint, they're still okay to use. So it's like the bananas that start going brown. They're not going to make you sick, but they may be not something you want to have as an afternoon snack.
They're actually better for certain things.
Absolutely.
There's more sugar in them when they overripe.
Absolutely.
It's great for banana bread.
Yep, 100% is so different fruits and different vegetables can serve different purposes at their different stages. So that's also, and freezing. So knowing, my strawberries, I had them and they're great. Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit not so desirable, but I'm going to put them in a freezer bag, put them in the freezer, and then I can use them in a smoothie. Or so you can extend, and even going so far as using your food scraps, right? And so maybe you buy that thing of celery and you had to cut off some of it. Put those things in the freezer and use them and make your own stock. So, there's definitely different ways where we can, not just have to have single use or single meal or single item things. We can get creative. If push comes to shove, we can certainly find uses for many of the things that we think that are only good for one or two purposes. And
Yeah. Well, with Thanksgiving coming up now, it's a great opportunity to make broth from
100%.
the turkey bone.
100%. Yeah. So turkey is one of those great things, as is pretty much with any kind of whole bird to use, because you can use the meat, when you need it. You can freeze it and use it for a later dish. And then again, using the carcass and boiling it down and using some of those leftover pieces of your vegetables that you were using, and make a great stock and freeze that, and then that's readily available, and then you didn't have to go buy it, you just used it with what you had. So those are also really great ways to extend that grocery dollar.
I'm not quite sure that Walmart still does this, but the other day I was walking by the meat cases, and I noticed that they had the previous day's rotisserie chickens in the refrigerator at a $2 discount.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, so you can buy, a rotisserie chicken for $3.97 instead of $5.97. But then they replaced all those cases with new ones, and I couldn't find them again. But maybe they'll still be there. So anybody who wants to get a really cheap rotisserie chicken and doesn't mind that it's been refrigerated, and it's almost cheaper than buying a chicken that you would have to cook yourself.
Absolutely. And those are again just tapping into those resources, looking for those opportunities to save money. And again, it may not be that it's hot and freshly cooked and it's in the thing, but it doesn't mean that it's any less safe for you to consume. Right. So refrigerating, freezing, those are all really great ways to extend the life of your food. I was going to say something about that's what it was with the first in, first out, and dating and labeling your food. So if you're going to have those items, sort of continuously monitoring your pantry items and just checking the dates, and things like spices, checking the dates. And it's not necessarily that cinnamon from 2 years ago has gone bad. It may just be that it's not as potent as cinnamon that you bought yesterday. So just kind of, checking in. And that's something too that we can help if people have questions. To feel free to reach out to the extension office. We can kind of help out with that food safety. If you're wondering, is it expired? Is it kind of demystify the best by date, the sell by date, the all those sorts of different terms that you see. But when you're freezing and you have your leftovers, it's really great to date them, and then to place them in the freezer according to the date, and then rotating the oldest things to the front, so that it's just like what they do in the grocery store, right? They've got the dates on things, and they're constantly pushing those older dates to the front so that you use those items. So labeling and dating is a really great way that things don't just sort of rot away in the back of the fridge or the freezer and get forgotten about. So that's also a really great way to help with the food waste, and to extend that grocery dollar, is just taking that little bit of time up front, and that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah.
So
I came up with one more question about sort of like unit pricing, but is there some way to compare meat that is bone-in with no bones? Like if there's a price difference of so many cents per pound, it would be better to buy the boneless rather than the one that has a bone in it?
I think it's going to come down to that unit price, honestly. And then also what's on sale, because sometimes you get boneless
yeah.
that's a little bit cheaper than the bone-in, because maybe they got in a huge shipment of it, and it's
I
a
guess
great price. It's
makes me think about that is there was something about eggs that, if the difference between a large egg and a jumbo egg is less than 10 cents, it's better to buy the jumbo. But I always wondered about that with bones. And,
What percentage of the meat is the bone? Is it from sales?
yeah,
yeah, and then you have the weight too of is there the bone versus the water,
Yeah.
and so it comes down and then it's also is it personal preference, and convenience, because it's going to
Right.
be a lot more convenient to get something that doesn't have skin or bone on it to cook up rather than get something that's going to require a little bit more work. I would say in a lot of cases, the things that require a little bit more work are probably going to be a little bit less expensive, but a lot of people are willing to pay the extra for the convenience.
right,
Right?
yeah. Convenience seems to be a big thing. It seems like the shoppers in Walmart, that whole thing has just exploded. That, there are people who are going around doing other people's shopping, and I like going to the grocery store, so it doesn't have any appeal to me to have somebody else do the shopping. I should go get a job.
There you go. There you go. You just created some new employment for yourself. And speaking of going to Walmart and checking the prices, one of the things that we're doing at the extension office is partnering up with our 4-H agent, and we're doing a 4-H cooking class once a month. We've got 10 kids, mostly middle school, and we're teaching them not only how to cook, we're featuring seasonal fruits and vegetables that are often less expensive, and then kind of giving them a little mini lesson on checking those unit prices and, does it make sense to buy this fresh, or is it cheaper to buy it frozen or canned? You can still make the same meal with it, but which one is going to be more economical? So really trying to educate and help those kids out, at a young age, so that they know when they do go grocery shopping, the things that they can look at, and maybe they're able to help their parents or their grandparents, or just having those life skills moving forward, so that they too, when they get out on their own or even at home, can make the most of their grocery dollars. So teaching those kids at a young age how to do that, and showing them the options and breaking that down, using real life examples. We did a class, and one of the food budgeting exercises we did, we took asparagus and said, here's the unit price for the fresh, here's the unit price, maybe it was canned, and then maybe it was frozen, and it's like, we're gonna use this option in the dish we're going to make, but just know that these other options exist. And again, with the convenience and people's attention spans, and we want everything now and fast and quick, but that also can add up to spending more money, right? Because we're not taking that time to do that research, and to shop the sales, to look at the coupons, and then to take the time to look at those unit prices. We're just kind of picking whatever happens to be in front of us, and you get home and you've spent $200 and you don't have a whole lot to show for it, and maybe you've got 2 nights worth of dinner, right? As opposed to just kind of slowing down and putting in that little bit of extra work and that little bit extra time is going to pay dividends in terms of being able to stretch those dollars. So just slowing down and taking the time, put in the work up front, and it's going to pay off in the end.
Yeah, that was kind of a unexpected bonus that I got out of COVID. During COVID, I started making bread,
Okay.
and I make bread once a week, and it's enough for my wife and I, to have sandwiches for lunch and all, just one loaf of bread, and it costs maybe 50 cents a loaf compared to what, $3-4 sometimes for a loaf of bread.
Yep.
And doesn't really take much time. Mixing it up takes about 5 minutes, and kneading it is another 7 minutes maybe. And then just, sitting around waiting for it to rise and bake. No problem.
Yep, absolutely.
And it tastes wonderful.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than warm homemade bread, fresh out of the oven.
Makes the house smell so
It
That's
absolutely
right.
does. It absolutely does. So I think if you have the time and the resources,
Right.
you know, I think that those are great options. You know, one final thing we didn't talk about a lot, partially because I don't do a lot of it, and I'm still trying to, you know, dip my toe in the food preservation world. But that's a great way to extend the grocery dollars too, is being able to preserve your food and
Right.
preserve it safely and have it for later. I mean, people have been doing it for, you know, many, many years, when, especially on the farms and harvesting their crops, and even as far as meat goes, you know, and being able to have that and extend those products well into, you know, picking them, you know, in the summer or whatever it happens to be, and then having it on the shelf, you know, for the winter. You know, maybe you go blueberry picking and you get your bags of blueberries and you freeze them, and then you can do all kinds of wonderful things with those. So freezing and preserving, and dehydrating as well. There's all kinds of really neat ways that you can make your food dollar stretch if you're willing to put in that work. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is people being willing to put in the work, and
Right.
that's not always what people.
I can tell you the added benefit of dehydrating bananas, get back to bananas, is that I'm constantly going to Harold to pick up these bananas, and I dehydrate. I invested in a $29 dehydrator that I got at Walmart, I think. And I give the bananas away as gifts to my children and grandchildren, and they love it. I mean, every time they see me, do you have any?
Exactly. So the tools and the knowledge are out there. It's just, you know, just encouraging folks to just take the time,
Right.
to take advantage of it. Because I know, you know, we're busy. There's a lot going on. Parents are stretched thin, you know, and a lot of times it's a lot easier to just zip through a drive-through and get a meal, you know, to satisfy that hunger or that convenience or that need that happens to be in the moment. But honestly, just finding the time, if you can, to slow down and take the time to put in that work up front really is going to be, you're going to do you and your family a lot more favors. And if you don't know how, you know, reach out to the extension office, you know, reach out to your local resources. You know, we're always happy to hear, you know, from the community, and, you know, if there's a need and a lot of people are asking for a particular class or a particular skill, you know, we're happy to meet that need and give the community the tools that they need to set them up for success.
Does the extension office here in Silva have a kitchen that people can use?
We do have a kitchen, and it can be rented out, absolutely. So we do have a teaching kitchen. It's not a commercial kitchen, you know, so you couldn't use it to do, you know, commercially, you know, cook, I guess, a commercial kitchen, commercial cooking. But it is a teaching kitchen, so we do offer classes in there, and we have rented it out to different groups and organizations to use as well.
So if you wanted to process canned food, you could buy a bunch of corn or beans and can them in
So
that
you
kitchen?
you couldn't come to the kitchen to do that yourself. That would be something that we would teach. So it would be a
Oh.
class that you could do. I do believe in Cherokee that they do have a canning facility that the public can go to and bring your stuff that you want to can. I believe that facility is located in Cherokee. So ours is more of a teaching kitchen. So if I wanted to put on a canning class and you wanted to learn how to can apples or, you know, can tomatoes or make salsa or whatever it is, then we can offer those classes there, and we do have all the equipment to do it. But you couldn't come in and kind of take that on yourself.
Is there a commercial kitchen available locally
You
that
know,
people can use?
that is a good question. That has come up in conversation. I know that they are working on creating a commercial kitchen here in Jackson County at the Drexel plant, I believe.
Okay.
They're
Down near Whittier.
Yes. I believe that that is one of the things that is being proposed in that particular facility. But right off the hand, I'm not sure of one that actually exists. But I know that it has been come up in several conversations about the need for one.
I know that there are several community centers in Jackson that have kitchens, are those not commercial kitchens that are available for public use?
Hmm.
That is a good question as well. I'm not sure. I think, it would be the question to ask each agency separately what their kind of operating procedure is. So it's not to say that they're not, it's just, I would definitely check with each agency to see how they operate.
Yeah, usually those community centers have a kitchen, but it's, like just a regular stove or something, and you could certainly can stuff on it. But it's not a commercial kitchen, which you don't really need, if you're just
I wonder if any of
canning.
the churches
Right,
also.
right. That would be a good thing to,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe that's a great next topic, is to find out about
Right.
the kitchens in the area and let folks know where they can go to use those things. Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be a great resource.
well, this has been very informative. I've had a good time talking with you about all this stuff. I hope people look at this video and learn as much as I have today.
Well, I hope so as well. I hope so as well. And if there's things that, that we haven't covered or topics we haven't addressed here, we're happy to host folks and their questions and have conversations at the Extension office as well.
And your phone number is?
It's 586-3898.
That's
And
in,
that's in the Jackson County office.
okay, 3898.
Yep.
And
So
there's
folks
a-
can go there. We have a Facebook page. So if you were to inquire about that, it's just, you can type in the Jackson County Cooperative Extension. And we also have a website as well. So if you're looking for that, you can just type in the Jackson County Cooperative Extension. Same thing for Swain County. They work in both counties. So we've got a Facebook page. We have the website. And then we try to post articles in the newspaper, about relevant topics, to try to get on the radio when we can, and then, say yes to invitations like this one to help get the word out as well.
Another thank you to the Silva Herald for having space available for things like this. that
Absolutely.
The community needs to know.
Absolutely. And so we try to keep stuff in there on a regular basis so that folks have the information that they need. And, newspapers, people say what they will, but a lot of people still read the paper, and I still think there's a lot of value in having stuff put out there in print media. So any channel that we can take advantage of to get the word out.
Right. Okay,
All right.
thank you,
Well,
Shannon.
thank you so much.
It's been great.
Thank you. It has been fun. I've enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.